Welcome to the Traders Clinic, your regular shot in the arm of trader insights, philosophy and knowledge, brought to you by two money managers, Ali Crooks and Charlie Burton.
In every episode, we answer your burning trading questions and cover all things from the world of trading.
We're back.
We are. Like your shirt, mate.
Thank you. Like yours too.
There you go.
Little bit less flamboyant than this. Anyway, never mind. It's a bit colourful, but yeah, let's get on.
Well, very confident shirt, I would say.
Oh, and on that. Oh, I like that.
See what I've done there?
Yeah.
So we're starting off with, I think, a big topic and something all traders are affected by and all traders need to consider and work on is, why is confidence such a big part of trading and how can you improve it?
We touched on this in some previous episodes when we talked about fear, and that most people, when you look at their trading, more people are fear motivated than greed motivated, because it's that fight or flight response. And most of us, when we're in an environment of danger, we're more likely to move away from that to preserve ourselves as human beings. That's what we're going to do. If we're in an area of danger, if we're stood by the edge of a cliff, we'll move back away from it, or you're in a conflict situation or whatever it might be. So more people are going to behave that way. And that tends to be the case with trading. So more people are fear dominated than greed. So then that comes across to confidence. And so why is it such a big issue? Well, there's countless reasons, but one, I'm going to give a slightly different view on confidence when it comes to trading, because you can have your confidence knocked. Because what a lot of people get into trading who they're not fearful straight away. They're actually okay. They're fairly balanced until they start trading, or they could have been trading successfully for a while. They've gone through the early stages, and this is really a trader story, but I'm not going to go too much into that story. But you could get to a point where you're, quite experienced as a trader, and then your confidence gets knocked by either a singular event or a longer drawdown. Now, the book, The Hour Between Dog and Wolf, if anyone's not read it, you should read it. It's not always easy going, or easy reading, but there are some little snippets and gems within that. Because what they did is they tested a lot of bank traders. This is going back a while ago. And they found that when bank traders had some big losses, like in bear markets, because these were generally long-only traders. So when bear markets would come, they'd sustain these bigger losses. They wouldn't get their commissions, their bonuses and stuff. And what they measured their testosterone levels, and they found that, again, comes back down to our basic fight or flight. In order to run away from the situation, our testosterone levels need to drop. If our testosterone levels are elevated, then we'll front up. And that's what will put us in that situation if we're in a one-on-one conflict or whatever it might be, a battle or a fight or something like that. So you need to have elevated testosterone levels for a situation like that. But if you're going to run away, they need to drop. And so what they found was that these traders, after sustained losses, their testosterone levels would drop. And so that enables you to sort of run away from the, so to speak, from the situation, but it doesn't help you re-engage and get back in. Because sometimes they found depressed testosterone levels could last not just for a couple of weeks, but for years, couple of years or more. And so then it becomes a problem. If you've got a bank trader who just can't pull the trigger and you need him or her. So that is something I wanted to just go down a slightly different route, because this is something that people need to be aware of. That there's one thing that you can go through a fearful phase, and most people will overcome that. But sometimes there can be an extreme, whereby you've had an extreme event or a longer period of losses, and actually it can affect. So people recognize, okay, I'm fearful at the moment, but maybe have a look at that sort of thing, because depressed testosterone levels, there will be markers. I've met traders who have had this exact thing and they lost their libido, among other things. So there are other markers there and telltale signs of lowered testosterone. You'll probably chip in on this as well. And that could be impacting your ability to trade where you want to be trading with confidence.
Yeah, to add to that, what a lot of people will do in a situation like that is, if their trading results aren't where they want them to be, it's very easy for them to, if they've been eating well and exercising, to stop eating well and stop exercising, which is also going to have an impact on their testosterone levels. So sometimes it's the situation within trading, but then it's made worse, it's exacerbated through them only doing the things that are good for them when things are going good. So it's the ability to be able to say, well, okay, compartmentalize that, but not let it impact every other area of your life. Easier said than done. And I think it comes back to something I'm very big on, which is this: ask yourself the question, are you accepting of the fact that trading will have times when you're going to have dips in your confidence? Or are you just hoping to get to this point, I call it the oasis in the desert, where I've been trading for a year and I'm not affected by everything and everything's going well, and I realize I've got to go through all these ups and downs in the early days, but I'm going to reach this point, this nirvana, where nothing will faze me and it'll all be fine. And that false expectation means it's far more easy for you to be knocked when things inevitably don't go your way, because trading is one of these things that you can be doing everything right in terms of your process, your strategy, your whole thing, your whole trading framework, and it not give you the result you want. And I liken it a lot to sport. I know you've talked about snooker and other things. We've talked about tennis and all these different ideas. Is why is confidence such a big part? Well, because the only way you're going to be a successful trader is if you're in the minority. So there's very few pursuits out there in the world where being in the minority, being unconfident will put you in the minority. So it's this acceptance that it's almost like the question is, well, why does confidence have to be such a big part of it? Well, it just is. So there needs to be a level of acceptance. So then you can, once you accept that confidence is key, you can look at things like the physical ramifications when your confidence drops, an acceptance that I'm going to have to do lots of different things. If I'm trading a strategy, trading a methodology with no data, no back testing, nothing behind it, when that trading strategy goes through a losing period, by default, I'm going to question whether or not that strategy is any good. I'm not saying that strategy has to perform exactly like the backtesting results, but having some data to lean on can make you feel better about what you're going through right now. Having other traders you can talk to, having a community, all these things, assuming they're the right type of traders around you and they're not making you feel worse. All of these things will, maybe not one of those things will boost your confidence up, but all of these things together will help keep your confidence. If it's gone from a 9, instead of it dropping to a 3, it only drops during that bad period to a 6. So it's not that he won't be affected, but you minimize the effects of a drop in confidence when things aren't going well.
I think, yeah, if you've just basically said this, but if you expect it to happen, and this again comes back down to mindset, of course, that if you plan this out, it sounds pessimistic, but it's really not. It's plan out ahead saying, look, I know that I'm going to go through drawdowns at some point in the, might even start tomorrow. And so if you're planning for that and planning for flat periods, planning for these things, all your job is to do is to follow your plan, your trade plan. So, but if you're expectant of losing trades, losing periods, flat periods, all of those things that the markets are going to do, when they do come, because you've pre-prepared for them, it makes it easier to deal with, which indirectly makes it easier to follow your plan. And it just becomes this big circle, so that the whole, getting negative and all of that, it's way desensitized. And so you need, what we're essentially saying is it's having the confidence to trade your plan. And that's why you need it, because if you don't have confidence, you won't trade your plan, and then and that's how you end up doing all those things that we're just discussing here. So, but there are, physiological, well, beyond physiological, there are things. That's why I thought at the beginning to talk about testosterone levels, because there are things biochemistry way from a chemistry perspective that can affect your ability to be confident and be rational and everything else. Now, most people who are in their first 2 or 3 years will be struggling with rationality anyway in their trading to some degree or another. But it's certainly something which people could look at as well. But in the main, you've got to, and the best way to do it is like, I love your analogy of the oasis in the desert, is to not think, if I can just do this, then I'll get to there. Just to sort of embrace it. Yeah. Embrace the uncertainty of the market. The more you embrace the uncertainty of the market, the better positioned you are for dealing with all that stuff that's going to come your way at various times. And then your confidence doesn't get knocked in the same way because you've already foreseen it, so to speak.
Yeah. The tidal wave's coming anyway at some point, at some degree. So turning away from it, ignoring it's not going to stop it coming. So I think you're saying, accept it so you can find solutions. You'll be far more proactive and far more creative and far more ready for it if you do. Good.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So we're on to our question. I like this. If I trade mechanically, am I taking more risk?
Well, maybe.
Yeah, it's a bit of a it depends question.
Yeah.
If we define mechanically is strict,
Rules-based.
very strict, very rules based, very few, no parameters for discretion, probably less flexibility in your analysis, then potentially. I mean, I know of 2 traders that trade in a very, very mechanical way. It's not, there isn't even a directional bias, so they will trade. They will take a certain time in the market, trade long and trade short at the same time. They've done a huge amount of testing on this. It's not the only way they trade. It's one of the ways that they trade within a portfolio of 2 or 3 different strategies. They have an expectation down to the data that they've seen that their drawdowns are going to be bigger because they aren't bringing in any element of discretion to what they do. But they understand that and they are happy to trade that way within the remit of that strategy. So you could argue that, yes, they are putting themselves at more risk if you look at the scenario which is more drawdowns more often, because in a drawdown, the potential for a trader to change what they're doing, not take the trade, not pull the trigger is probably greater. So in that scenario, potentially, yes, they are putting themselves at more risk.
Yeah, I think because when you're mechanical trading, which you've already touching on here, is you can look at the data from a load of back tests and say, all right, I'll trade this strategy and this strategy and this strategy, and then not look at the overall exposure. Because you think that a lot of people will incorrectly think that they're uncorrelated, and they may be in that back test, but actually at some point they will be correlated at some point, and it's usually when they all go into a drawdown.
Yeah.
And so you have to be careful of, like you said, with mechanical approaches, so as to how many you want to have. So a simple tip would be, there's nothing wrong with using a few different mechanical approaches. Look at your risk. So don't think, oh yes, I'm going to risk 1% per trade on every one of those approaches. Well, look at the combined potential. What is the combined potential drawdown across those? And for a lot of them, it would just be too much. There was a trader I knew, and he had a mechanical approach, and he back tested it, and it was averaging like 60% a year. And I'm thinking, right, well, let's quarter that, whatever, I don't know, halve it, whatever. And he said, no, and it was an intraday approach as well, which you can't back test enough for slippage when it comes. Slippage makes a bigger difference on an intraday strategy than when you're back testing, And but anyway, so it would average like 60% a year, and he said, well, if I trade it at 2% risk per trade, then that would be 120% a year. And you can see the brain going. You think, and so I said to him, I don't think you should trade it at 2% a year, 2% per trade. That is still a very good system. If it's as good as you say it is, with all your back testing on it, and he showed me all these spreadsheets on it and done all these various, there was a lot of analysis that went into it. And this just goes to show people you've got to be careful, because it doesn't matter how good your back test is, does not guarantee that it's going to be successful in the future. It's an indication, but it's not a guarantee. And the irony was, he started trading it, and within like a month or so of going live with it, so the first month it was fine, it was trading along, and and then he went in a 26% drawdown over a period of only a few months. So if he had have been in at 2% risk, then it would have been well into the 50%, which for a lot of people would have been way too much. So by all means, mechanical trading can be more risk just because of people end up, trading multiple systems and don't realize the potential collective risk. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah,
but other than that, it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's my default position. If I was to see somebody with 3 strategies, they've tested over 3 years, and look, this one makes this one makes this one makes this, and at no point were all 3 strategies losing at the same time during that 3-year period, I actually see it as a higher probability that that's going to happen now. I know you could argue that you don't know, but they don't see it that way. They go, look, this strategy offset against this one, and this strategy offset against this one, and if I trade all of them, I'm going to make the money. I'm like, but what if what happens going forward is exactly what didn't happen? Because it's now that is now due to happen. You just happen to test during that period where it all looked rosy and nice.
That's what happened to long-term capital management. Now, for people who don't know about what happened to long-term capital management back in 1998, they thought and these were people who were ex-Harvard scholars, MIT, graduates who had come out and thought they had this amazing options model for trading, set up their funds. And don't get me wrong, they are super, super clever people, but again, hadn't still taken into consideration in their modeling a credit default event, which is what happened in Russia at that time. And then they blew up and it affected the markets and all of that as a result. So you can, again, have very, very intelligent people who will come up with models, and it's actually very difficult to not have a moment in time, like you've just said, where on paper it looks like, oh yeah, they've never gone through a drawdown collectively, like you said. They will, because do you really think you're that clever when you've got ex-MIT people who thought they'd cracked it? So no, assume. So if they go through, if each one of those models has relatively small drawdowns, you might be able to trade it. Or if not, just reduce the risk per trade.
Like that.
So
good. And on that note, his name's Charlie Burton.
His name's Ali Crooks. Trade
Trade
safely out there.